He's living. Hello, ladies. Let's do this. Look. And some of these, and some of these. Damn, that's gonna ruin me. I only have a slight ban less, 1 day left ban on the Bird platform. Super super unbased of them to limit me being able to bully people online and limit my freedom. Very gay of Twitter. And you might ask, we need the TGR, the garlic router. Yeah. Yeah, I2P is definitely, RTP, Right to Privacy. I was looking at his channel recently. He said that he was having some issues with I2P Plus. It might be an I2P Plus issue, where they are getting their balls slapped around, and that's not fun. Possibly gay. So I definitely recommend people still run I2P because it's still based, and support the garlic. You know, what do you call it? Hummus has garlic on it. Garlic sauce. I mean, garlic is a very based sauce. It's a very based vegetable. It's good for you, from what I understand, unless you have like what do you call it? If you have acid reflux, then it's probably not good for you. It's unbased, and your doctor will tell you stop eating it, which is also gay. Though PB&J on a burger is pretty based. Man, you know what pisses me off? Knowing that what do you call it? Man, why are there so many YouTubers in fucking apartments? That night vision goggles in real life is very expensive. How your I2P router is going? Mine's at 61% tunnel success rate. Not entirely sure. I'll have to check, because it wouldn't let me visit sites still, even at 45% or whatever, right? Where is... Yeah, night vision, this is just a quick tangent. Like, real night vision goggles, it actually irritates me on how expensive they are. It's like 7 to 10 grand for a good pair. Anytime you see this shit, though, like the fake ones are like look at that. I can't be Splinter Cell, and it's bullshit. Somebody lend me $26,000, please. Like, anytime you see someone that has $26,000 night vision goggles, you know that they are a trust fund baby, or they just took out a loan. A loan worth it, I would say. But the shit on fucking like Amazon and stuff like that, those are fake. Those aren't good. Real night vision goggles are expensive. It doesn't make sense. I don't get it. Let's see. Opticsplanet.com. What do they care about? Are they based and cool? See, I just want a cool pair. Like this, I would do. But I want the cool pair, the one that drops down. Where, like, if someone saw that, they would be like, Splinter Cell. They would get scared. They would shit their pants. They would stop whatever threat that they thought they were about to do to me. And they would be like, I am sorry for what I said to him. They're very expensive, though. But that's my slight off-tangent, unrelated rant that I just think about every now and then. I'm like, why couldn't I have been born rich so I could have night vision goggles that made me look like Sam Fisher from Splinter Cell? Speaking of Splinter Cell, very based, very cool video game, too. That and Hitman, it always made me feel like I was a real spy and I could do real damage to real people in real life. And then I was like, no, I couldn't. All right. These age verification laws are kind of insane. We're going to be looking at if you're too much of a giant bitch and you have wet your pants. NSA, ABC. You have wet your pants. You cannot install Graphene OS for whatever. I mean, now you can't install qubesOS for whatever reason. If you cannot use qubesOS because you are lying to yourself and to your colleagues because you have Windows and you are Windows goated and Windows enjoyer for some insane fucking reason, and you don't want to run Windows in a hypervisor, aka qubesOS, for another insane reason. Maybe your wife's boyfriend doesn't allow you to enjoy free and open source software. That could be option A or option B. There's no actual chronological order of why your wife's boyfriend would not let you install qubesOS, the most based operating system that you can get, because then you can enjoy all of the operating systems. If you are a distro hopper or enjoyer of hopping to different distributions, you can do it on qubesOS. Now, I haven't come across any hardware limitations or any issues that exist necessarily inside qubesOS, but their biggest requirement and disclaimer is to pay attention to two things. A, do not get a high resolution screen. It is a nightmare. It is not going to be fixed anytime soon because of the way Qubes handles everything. Maybe in the future, and maybe Wayland could fix this hypothetically, but Wayland support for qubesOS is still far out. It has not been dealt with yet. It will be awesome. Today I ate egg patty and a toasted bagel with mayo. That's good. That's based, actually. I would do the bagel, no mayo. I would just do avocado spread. My favorite bagel or hummus. I like hummus. I fuck with hummus. It's probably like my favorite spread in the morning. It's very delicious. I do that with pickled onions. That's real crack right there. I like fermented foods. I'm a fermented food enjoyer. I think it unlocks my third eye. Makes me feel really cool in the morning when I tell people I ate fermented food in the morning. They're like, "What did you eat this morning, man?" I'm like, fermented food. Beer is fermented, so I'm going to be living to 9,000 years old, apparently. But we're going to look at the other operating systems through the scope of security and privacy evaluation through Medallions Insecurities, GitHub. This is slightly outdated information to a certain degree. Some of this stuff has probably been fixed. Some of this stuff maybe hasn't been fixed. It's not necessarily that it's also not necessarily that everything has to be fixed, but there's still a lot of issues inside of Linux out the gate. It's obviously being correct now. This is from 2022, I believe. If it's still... even relevant. Seeding my torrents. When was the last time? Yeah, 4 years. It's been 4 years. And the point isn't to say that Linux is the worst option. But I don't like there's two premises I don't like. The premise is assuming that Linux is secure out of the gate. I think that's dangerous. And assuming just because I would say assuming because Linux is free and open source and has a less user share, that's another red flag. Seeding my torrent to one peer over ITP, pretty based. That is pretty based of you. You're not a leech. You gotta seed, not sneed. And I understand there's a lot of Linux nerds and like free and open source software nerds. But if you have an insecure system that is leaking metadata, leaking your entire life out because it's insecure, that doesn't mean that's not like a good thing. I think this is where people fundamentally get tripped up on. They're like, Windows bad privacy. We understand that. But if Windows is relatively self-contained and you can minimize most of the telemetry that pretty much gets sent out, you realistically are better off using Windows with, I guess, fake telemetry to a certain degree. Like obviously not logging into Facebook or anything. If you're just using Windows for like general purpose work and stuff, and you are attaching stuff that isn't people looking for Linux that's secure out of the gate, is better with open based. No, I don't think that's necessarily true. We would have to like look into that and compare it. What does OpenBSD, open-based, even offer compared to like the standard Linux distributions? Obviously, OpenBSD and like FreeBSD and most of the BSD families are relatively geared towards server infrastructure. Not that it's only for that, but it is generally geared towards that in general. And the problem is there's a lot of like modern security safeguards that are built into systems that obviously make the most sense for the average user. I mean, I hate to say it, Windows security engineers are probably like really good. They're probably really good at their job. They're probably really good in general at making sure that Windows is relatively secure out of the gate. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be immune to security problems. I mean, this is why Graphene OS is like developers have selectively picked a certain hardware vendor when it comes to Android, and that was for the longest time until recently was the Pixel series, because the Pixel met like very well vetted security standards that should be the default, and these were taking away from the faults and the issues that exist in desktop operating systems. I mean, you could even say, if your goal is to have like a secure operating system that's mobile, Graphene OS that can go into a docking system with a laptop, like a laptop where you can use desktop mode, would probably be a million times more secure than just using like your standard like Linux distribution that you just downloaded from the fucking internet. And it's always going to be a heated debate, because Linux nerds will argue about like what's the most secure Linux distribution, what's the most privacy wise. That's why we're going to look at some opinions and then look across what these opinions really matter in terms of like actual like functional privacy and security. I mean, Secure Blue makes a lot of points, and they pulled their browser from a lot of the browser hardening from Graphene OS. Because Graphene OS was like, hey, how can we make this better? You know, how can we make this more secure? I think it's not a matter of always what you install to agree, but understanding what you install is probably more. If you have a system and you know it's like I know Linux is less secure, but there are certain things that I tighten down more, and I have a slight amount of common sense. But the people Linux nerds. I've been trying Dragonfly based in VM pretty fast. Yeah, Dragonfly is pretty based. the biggest problem with Linux nerds is they're like, well, just have common sense. Common sense isn't like you having common sense doesn't prevent like a vulnerability existing in the system at the operating system level at all. It doesn't matter if you have common sense. Like people are like common sense. Well, if there's an exploit or something that's built into the system that can be exploited, that has nothing to do with common sense. Common sense doesn't eliminate this problem. This problem is everywhere too. This can happen in Windows. Like if Microsoft designed something in the back end of Windows to be insecure and it's just not fixable, or they don't know it's insecure, common sense can't prevent that from being exploited. That's just retarded. It's such a dumb take too. You having common sense means nothing. There are common sense things that everyone can adopt, like, yes, don't click on a link. But that's not, if you don't click on the link, but your system is exploitable, it doesn't really matter if you click on the link or not. If you don't get firmware patches, if you don't get hardware patches, like your firmware updates and everything, then it doesn't really matter. That's kind of like my general take on it. Common sense is cool to think about until you realize a lot of exploits aren't common sense related. It has nothing to do with like the general perspective of people. People are like, don't download application. Well, yeah, but if your system is exploitable, it doesn't matter if you download application or not. Obviously, there's very advanced malware and a very, very, very advanced social engineering that even people with common sense could get. So I'll give an example. I got a call once when I first set up my YouTube channel on my virtual number, and they said it was from California. It was Google, and someone got on the phone and they're like, "Oh, someone's trying to I got one of those scam calls, like someone's trying to hack your like Gmail account. I'm gonna send you an email, and you need to change your password or whatever." I'm like, no, and I just hung up. But to a person that's running a business that's not technically literate, it came from a legitimate California. It came from California. It looked legit. Google does actually have like representatives, I believe, that you can talk to if you run if you have a business profile. And I've seen people like almost got that looks legit. I mean, it's just not. It's no one's like immune to getting phished. You're not immune to every problem out there. Now, how I prevent these kind of things happening is I do bookmarks for a reason. Bookmarks is if I need something, I will go to the bookmark, so I know I'm going to the right site. If I get a call, I immediately. I mean, I do the common stuff that I've learned over the years. Like I got if someone calls me and it's important, I just hang up and call back. I call the company. I'm like, hey, I just got a call from you guys. I just got a call from you guys. How can I fix this? Like, what's the issue? Are you guys actually calling me? And I've done that for like even in like employers before. Like there are people will reach out and they're like, hey, can you click this link? And I'm like, let me call back. I don't like getting calls and doing things. I would rather call to the verified number. I even check if the number's verified. Like that. I mean that sounds like extra, but like that's just the level of that's just the level I have to take. And that's things that like you can teach your grandma and shit. I'll try and run, man. I'll try and run. What do you mean? MM. How about I'll try running cubes on my laptop? Yeah, you should. I mean, like, there's not really you're not losing anything. You can run Windows in qubesOS, though you might run into some hard. You're just going to be bloating your system. I don't know if Winboat works. That would be something I would like to test out. I will fight you, Jay. You know you can do it with 16 gigs. You know this. Billy had what, seven gigs of RAM. The RAM is less of the issue, and it's more about the hardware that can support it. Mine only has 8, and it can run about 7 cubes. Exactly. I have Arch on it now. You can have Arch on it too. You can have Arch on qubesOS. That's the beauty of it. They're called HVMs. You can import any HVM you want. I already got Open Base Cube. Yeah. And oh, here's another one. Here's a crazy one. Next, run OpenBSD on qubesOS, as you should. Here's a crazy one. You can actually 8 gigabyte. You can actually not just run HVMs. You can run full virtual machines, and they just work. Like, there's so many ways to import pretty much everything. And if you have ADHD, or you have you need compartmentalization, like you need organization, it's perfect. It's really, I've always said this, it's the most ADHD friendly operating system ever. Everything's color coded. The password thing that people like. I think I saw someone, they said, well, they don't like the vault because it's not connected to the internet and they can't sync their passwords. How many fucking passwords are you making really every couple months? If you're just an average person, I end up with a lot of passwords because I test a lot of things. I do a lot of testing, so I set up stuff that I'll probably never touch again, and I'll just delete the password. I barely ever need actual syncing for my real life. Honestly, I'm not signing up for shit that much. And the password rotation is retarded. You don't need to rotate your passwords. This is only for enterprise companies, because people get fired and they don't want them to have access anymore. That's just good security practice from a business standpoint. But if you're normal, why would you rotate your password ever? If you have a long, insane password, happy main virtual message, I have no idea what that is. But also, yeah, happy whatever that is. So we're going to look at some security and privacy evaluations of Linux. We're going to look at some other blogs and people's opinions on it. and we're gonna think like if qubesOS, if you're a giant diaper baby. I don't see anything on YouTube for a Dell Latitude running qubesOS, just ThinkPads. So the thing is, you have to go to qubesOS certified hardware and see if your model is there. This is a really good resource to have. I'll drop it. And here's the thing. If it doesn't work, I see it. If you don't, for whatever reason, if it doesn't work, just fucking install. It won't. Just install Arch. Reinstall Arch. Let's discuss proxy VMs and how circumvent anti-VM prevention measures. I don't know what a proxy VM is. Are you talking about like pre-installed Privacy Beast? I thought about getting this, but this shit's expensive. Bypass anti-VM. I'm not aware of any way you can't install VM unless you live in like North Korea or like China. Desktop. Privacy Beast. I should make my own company. I'll just buy like think. Yes, it's on there. Based. See. You just got, dude. Honestly, I hate to sound like a broken record. qubesOS documentation is so good. It's so fucking good. They're the best. It is the best documented and community that I've ever come across. Like, it is so well documented that you don't even need to like think about a lot of it. Like, there is some, like, the clipboard is the most, in my opinion, this is just a personal thing, the clipboard is the most annoying thing to overcome in the beginning. And when I went back to a normal computer, I was like doing the same I'm like copy, Control Shift C, copy to, like, I was doing this same thing. Like, it became such a habit. I was copying like the clipboard if I was on cubes, and I'm like, oh wait, I don't gotta do all that. Now, when it comes to like your VPN and stuff, this is why I really like qubesOS operating system, because I managed to hack into the CPD systems. Oh, I mean, I wouldn't commit your crimes on live. I wouldn't talk about committing crimes on the internet live. I don't condone crimes, guys. Crimes are bad. Nothing will protect you from police state. Yeah, even qubesOS has acknowledged this. That this is not the operating system if you want privacy. Like, at the level of Tails. Like, if you want the same level of Tails in qubesOS, this is not the operating system for you. But if there's nothing tracing back to you, like if you like Unix, because Unix is built into this, then you wouldn't really have to worry. This is why you would have to use something with Buzzkill, and you would have to make sure you're using a disposable VM, and you would have to make sure it shreds your entire system. But it's still definitely forensically enabled. Like, it's forensically there's an option for it's like forensically investigatable. And this is where they've said from, like, relatively very clear up front, if you want something like Tails, that's it. My laptop, no suspend, reboot, cold boot, and normal shutdown work. What do you... Oh. Nice. Based. So... If man, I love I2P D. It's so fast. I wish there. Hopefully, in the future, I2P is going to be very easy. Yeah, I2. One of the things is like relatively. Sorry, I was reading something. I want to assemble a PC, but what's the Dash Air firmware and how do I install it? You can't. You got to have it pre-installed. Dash Air is a way for integrity check, and you have to get it installed. You can't install Dash Air yourself. It's not like that. It's a chain of trust thing. Unfortunately, just buy something with Dash Arrow already pre-installed. Like, just get something with Dash Arrow. Oh. This is another good place where you can see like qubesOS like stuff that wants to get added. That would be based. Global clipboard improvement ideas. Rejecting hard work of qubesOS development. What are the privacy implications of NTP request, time sync, and how? You can actually mitigate NTP with SNTP or running your own NTP server. Or you can set a clock VM as downstream cubes if all. Block updates checked NIST several. What is a clock VM? How do you connect it? There's actually a way to do the clock VM through Tor as well. This is actually a good question too. You can actually do a man-in-the-middle attack because NTP doesn't do any form of authentication and it's not encrypted in transit. From what I remember, this is what SNTP is supposed to solve. This is why actually, if it's really critical, running your own NTP server is like one of the highest levels that you should achieve. Hence why I run my own NTP server. And there's actually like time-based attacks you can do. You can correlate people's like time zone. That puts you, if you think everyone lives somewhere in the world and you can't determine what time zone they're in, that can potentially de-anonymize you in a sense. Now we know they live on the West Coast because they're in this time zone. You just cut the population in half, and now it becomes obviously more easier. And then you can cut it into forests. Etc., etc. My clock cube is sysnetDM, which is Fedora based. Yesterday it was sending NTP requests to some ISP company. Got the name. Yesterday it was sending ISPs to you. But SNTP is supposed to solve this. We're gonna get into it. Below the list lies a list of analysts regarding security and privacy-focused topics. The security assessment makes no attempt at evaluating security based on the number of form of vulnerabilities in a particular program. Instead, criteria involves the software's overall security posture and ease of exploitation. Primarily, the assessments include an analysis of the software's attack surface exposure as well as the adoption of modern defense techniques, in particular the study of the deployed exploit mitigations and the extent of which differs apart. And this is here's the thing. Just because a lot of vulnerabilities exist inside a particular machine doesn't mean it is insecure or that is the problem. Exploits are always going to exist. It is a constant battle. Software is constantly evolving. It just like if the system is doing as much mitigation as possible, say like you think of it kind of like a house. If your house essentially has a front door and you have a room in between like your living room and that front door, if you have zero locks, it doesn't really matter if you have two doors on there. You did zero mitigation. That would be poor planning, poor security posture, and that would be a bad outcome. Even though these are steel doors, they're steel, they're reinforced, they're sexy, doesn't matter. You didn't put locks on them. But if you put, let's say, wooden doors, less powerful, less sexy, less good, rots faster, not weather resistant, but if you put two locks on there, and they're really good locks. They're well-made locks. They're locks that are very strong. You essentially put a better security posture in the front. So say they get through the first lock, it's like, level 1. Say level 2 takes them longer to get through level 2 lock. That lock essentially is preventing them from exposing the innards of your house. Say they can only go as far as that second door because it's just too hard to be able to get past or mitigate. And your only way of knowing if software is good or not is how fast are they going to respond to security incidents? How is it fixed? What is the mitigation? What gets leaked? What doesn't get leaked? It's not about the amount of vulnerabilities or critical problems that exist in the product. It is more about how do they handle it and what do they mitigate from being leaked or exposed. That's always been generally my take. It's not just as bad if Linux at the core function is just allowing anyone to install the software they want with no safeguards with sudo. That's not good. That's not like a good thing that exists. And because of that, if there's no safeguards, then you essentially put people in positions to be able to be exploited easier with zero calculations or concerns of what could go wrong if this can be exploited. All right, now that we understand that, likewise, the privacy evaluations are focused on meaningful approaches to achieve it. Let's go. All right. Remember, this is old. And again, it's like if something's privacy focused, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's better for you. They could be false and privacy focused all they want, but if they're not putting any forms of into security, then it's not always it's not always the best result. So, why is your Ubuntu still 2013? I would never use Ubuntu. I'm an Ubuntu hater. On desktop, use a recent Windows secured core PC, MacBook, or Chromebook. These all have numerous security advantages, including proper verified boot and strict IOMMU, etc. Recent Windows secured core PC, a MacBook or Chromebook. Chromebooks are actually relatively really secure. Happy game, Tenek on VM. Words of wisdom from me. We will continue. I don't know if that's German. So this would be, in its core function, the best option for people out the gate. The desktop security model is very broken. It was not designed with security in mind. Security was only poorly implemented afterthought. However, there are some operating systems that are less bad in this regards. If you can stay away from desktop and stick to mobile devices, use Windows 11, preferably in S mode, on a secured core PC, Mac OS, Chrome OS, or qubesOS. Generally, these operating systems have made sustainable progress in adopting more exploit mitigations, verified boot, sandboxing, memory safe languages, and so on. And all right. There are advantages and disadvantages between these options, and it's not possible to give an accurate recommendation as to which they will suit any particular person. One must develop their own threat model and choose suitable operating system in accordance. For example, Windows 10 has great exploit mitigation such as coarse-grained forward edge CFI implementation, control flow guard, whereas macOS uses full verified boot to eliminate malware persistence. Some operating systems do have some privacy-invasive telemetry, but it can usually be disabled at the settings and verified with network analyzers like Wireshark if you need to be certain. The security of qubesOS depends entirely on how you use it. The security within the virtual machines matter a lot. Don't neglect it. Make sure that you are using secure guest operating systems and split everything between as many virtual machines as possible. Virtualization can be a very strong security boundary, but it's not magic. I recommend Brad Springer's criticism of qubesOS to understand some of the limitations. Do not use Linux. Qubes is not Linux. All right. This is from 2010. X11 root Cube's square root. So this guy's going to criticize my favorite operating system. This is not super long, but it's going to give us a better general understanding. I can't read that either. Hello, list for lions. Grab yourself a beverage of choice and some anticipatory popcorn. This will take a while. So every year or so, we get some overly confident zealot shot down on DD. Any SE Linux zealots still out there? Going with a tide of security, this year's program seems to be the center around a new topic. Virtualization, particularly from the person who brought us the only 100% undetectable rootkit. The internet hype machine seems to be in full swing. Hopefully I'll be fine when playing a game on a VM. Yeah, you should be. 100% what you say. Sorry, I can't hear your arguments when my fingers are secured firmly in my ears and your voice is drowned. Oh, is this Nmap? Oh, sec list. Oh yeah, this is Nmap. Social media don't. That's funny. Don't put any sensitive information online if you can help it. If you must, use strong encryption. Always use full disk encryption. Use BitLocker on Windows. That's ironic. So this is one of those things that's like, I would say, is outdated. I would not use Bit. This didn't age well, I guess you would say, but definitely use something like Linux's Lux. Do not install a bunch of sketchy security software. Keep it minimal. That's true. Always use HTTPS. Manually type in HTTPS part of the URL when visiting websites to prevent SSL stripping attacks. Install NodeScript to block content such as JavaScript as much as you can. JavaScript inherently presents a massive attack surface. Open-based encourages full disk encryption during the install. Based, as true. On laptop for cubes, but how is the battery? The battery's okay. It kind of depends on your hardware and like, I mean, I get a decent amount. Good thing Nova Custom supports you replacing your parts. Never visit unknown websites. Disable Wi-Fi and Bluetooth when not in use. That's true. Use airplane mode and or take out the SIM card as much as possible to prevent cell tower triangulation. Yeah. I think airplane mode works though. Cover or remove any webcams or microphones. Yeah. Do not give apps explicit permission. I would say NoScript is probably the best option. JavaScript is inherently not good. Do not use SMS for 2FA. I kind of disagree with that because it's better to have that than not have that. Like, I would rather say that you should, if you're going to use 2FA, use it regardless. It's better. I mean, if you can opt for your email is probably a lot better. Because if you have 2FA on your email, then, you know. Bromite, I don't think Bromite's recommended anymore. I think it's Chromite now. I think that's the more updated one. Brave, obviously. Privacy-wise, Tor browser is a good answer. One second, gotta grab more beer. Can you suggest privacy settings when shopping online? I have a controversial take about this. If you're going to shop online, use a prepaid debit card and send it to your house and put whatever name you want. Like, there's not really a good way to shop online because it is invasive, but if you're going to do it, send it to your house with a fucking fake name. Because if you... I would not change that. That's retarded. Your web view is one of the most... secure parts of the entire part. You wouldn't want to do that. As far as I know, I2P Mail lets you send emails to ClearNet and strips away some metadata. Yeah, that's true. But they recycle emails. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't rely on it. They recycle emails. It's not good. For security, use Chrome, avoid Firefox or a browser based on it, as they are currently very lacking security. Microsoft Edge is a better choice for Windows users, as it can utilize Microsoft Defender, Application Guard, MDAG, and its enhanced security model in it with JIT is disabled, and mitigations such as ACG, CIG, CFG, and CET are all enabled in the rendered process. For privacy, use the Tor browser. Consider using the security slide. Do not assume that hardening Firefox or other browsers will make it private. It won't. Be aware that this is massively reduced security from other options, as mentioned below. And it's true. A secure browser is way more important than a private browser in some sense, because if your browser is insecure and it leaks everything, it doesn't fucking matter. Messenger use Signal. It's preferably with a burner VoIP number. Yeah, you can use like something like Silent Link or like SMS Pool. The whole number thing that people bring up is like kind of annoying because you can just use a fucking burner, not like a number where you don't need any form of identity. If you can stay away from email, it's fundamentally insecure. Yeah, it's true. It's always JavaScript. Okay, snack time over. Linux being secure is a common misconception in the security and privacy realm. Linux is thought to be secure primarily because of its source model, popular usage in servers, and small user base, and confusion about its security features. This article is intended to debunk these misunderstandings by demonstrating the lack of various important security mechanisms found in other desktop operating systems and identifying critical security problems with Linux security model across both the user space and the kernel. Overall, other operating systems have a much stronger focus on security and have made many innovations in defense of security technologies, whereas Linux has fallen far behind. Section 1 explains the lack of proper application security model and demonstrates why some software is commonly touted as solutions to this problem are insufficient. Section 2 examines and compares the number of important exploit mitigations. Section 3 presents a plethora of architectural security issues with the Linux kernel itself. Section 4 shows the ease an adversary can acquire root privilege, and Section 5 contains examples of therefore. Section 6 details issues specific to stable release models where software updates are frozen. Section 7 is the infeasible the average user, correcting the aforementioned issues. Finally, Section 8 provides links to where security researchers have said about the topic. Due to inevitable pedantism, Linux in this article refers as the standard desktop or GNU/Linux. Ooh, our favorite part, sandboxing. The traditional application security model on the desktop operating system gives any executed application complete access to all the data within the same user account. This means that any malicious application you install or an exploited vulnerability in otherwise benevolent application can result in the attack immediately gaining access to your data. Such vulnerabilities are inevitable, and their impact should be immediately strictly isolated from one another. That is kind of true. I think people have said like user space is the biggest problem too in Linux. There, Bill. User space can be USO busybox as we see in Alpine and KISS Linux. But does that mitigate the issue? Linux still follows the secure model, such as there is no resemblance of strong sandboxing architecture or permission model in the standard Linux desktop. Current sandboxing solutions are either non-existent or insufficient. All applications have access to each other's data and can snoop on your personal information. That's true. In comparison, other desktop operating systems, including Windows 10, Mac OS, Chrome OS, have put considerable effort into sandboxing applications, with the two in particular. Windows still falls behind when it comes to sandboxing, but has at least made some progress. Windows automatically sandboxes UWP applications and provides Windows Sandbox utility for non-UWP applications. All applications in Chrome OS are sandboxed regardless. This is why Chrome OS is based, actually. I know some people hate it, but, you know. Flatpak aims to sandbox applications, but its sandboxing is very flawed. This is somewhat outdated information, so, like, before we get too deep into the weeds. It's gotten better, and one of the biggest problems with Flatpaks, one of the was flats. I think the lack, the permissions issue was somewhat of an issue, and unverified Flatpaks. But I think Flatkill is somewhat outdated, and some of the criticisms has been fixed. Okay, Flatpak's permissions are also too broad for the meaningful. For example, many applications come with a file system home or file system host permissions, which grant read and write access to the user's home directory, giving access to all your personal files and allowing trivial sandbox. In the FlatHub GitHub organization, 550 applications come with such permissions, which is about 30% of all repositories. While this percentage may not seem significant, it includes a considerable amount of applications that people will commonly use. Examples include GIMP. Unfortunately, GIMP sucks. EOG, Gredit, VLC, Krita, LibreOffice, Based Office actually, Audacity, VS Code, Dropbox, Transmission, Skype, and countless others. Wow, Skype's not even around anymore, buddy. Another example is Flatpak's broad permission is how it allows unfiltered access to X11's socket, permitting easy sandbox escaping due to X11's lack of GUI isolation, adding X11 sandbox via nested X11 server, such as Xperia, would not be difficult, but Flatpak's developers refuse to acknowledge this and continue to claim that X11 is impossible to secure. Well, X11 sucks, so they should just stop using it in general. Another, FireJail is, it's set UID. That's another one. Further example include Flatpak's giving complete access to directories such as sys and proc, kernel interface known for information leaks. Yeah, proc is apparently a huge attack surface that hackers like to get access to as much as possible. Don't know why. Maybe I'll read on that. And if your goal is to get some level of higher security threat model, you again have to use qubesOS in a secure manner. You cannot break the security model and expect it to work like magic, because it's not magic. In your opinion, which is the best manager application on Graphene File Manager? The native. It just works. You don't want to give applications too much access. You want to be restrictive. That's the point. If you're not being restrictive, then they can access your files, especially a file manager. Your best option is to just use the standard file manager and set up storage scope everywhere. Because that's what I do. FireJail, everyone's loved one. FireJail is another common sandboxing technology, however, it is also insufficient. FireJail works in security by acting as a privilege escalation hole. FireJail requires set UID, meaning that it executes with the privilege of the execute's owner, which in this case the root user. This means that it's vulnerable to that a vulnerability in FireJail can allow escalation root privileges. Your better option is using BubbleJail, or I think it's Bubble Wrap or something. BubbleJail. Oh, for comparison, another Linux sandboxing tool, Bubble Wrap, has significantly less attack surface and less prone to exploitation because it aims to be very minimal and provide only the absolutely necessary functions. This is very important and makes potentially vulnerabilities extremely low. As an example of this, Bubble Wrap doesn't even grant seccomp filters itself. Once one must create their own, often sec export BPF and supply to Bubble Wrap. Another example is Bubble Wrap's simplistic command line arguments. There is no parsing of configuration files or complex redundant Unfortunately, Bubble Wrap isn't widespread and can be difficult to learn. Bubble Wrap is essentially bare bones wrappers around namespaces in seccomp. A user would need a decent knowledge on how the file system syscalls so work on properly use. Which file manager application supports access to AX man? What's AX? I would have to know what AX manager is. Has a battery life on a laptop? I mean, I get good battery life, but I have a freshly new laptop, and the battery life is relatively good. Something that people should know is get a decent knowledge on the file system, syscalls, and how and so on to work properly use it. Exploit mitigations eliminate entire classes of common vulnerabilities and exploit techniques to prevent severely hindered exploitation. Linux has not made a significant progress on implementing modern exploit mitigations, unlike other operating systems. Most programs in Linux are written in memory unsafe language such as C or C++. Some people see this as a W, that it's still written in C and Rust isn't needed. Some people say that you just need to learn how to write safe Rust. Which causes the majority of discovered security vulnerabilities, and other operating systems have made more progress on adopting memory-safe language, such as Windows, which is leaning heavily towards Rust-based a memory-safe language. macOS, which uses adopting Swift, while Windows and macOS are still mostly written in memory unsafe languages. They're at least making some progress on it. The Linux kernel simply implementing support for Rust does not imply that it will be actively used. No major portions of the kernel are written in Rust, and there is no intention to do so. Only a handful of drivers are going to be written in Rust, which will actually result in a net loss of security, as a mixed binaries can allow for bypass of various exploit mitigations. Microsoft is the only vendor to have solved the aforementioned problem by implementing control flow guard support for Rust. Based. Alternative replacement for Shitsu to OAX Manager. I wouldn't know that, honestly. I just use the native file manager because it has the least permissions. Furthermore, modern exploit mitigations such as control flow integrity are also not widely used on Linux. A few examples are explained below here. Arbitrary code guard and code integrity guard. A very common exploit technique is during the exploitation of a buffer overflow vulnerability. An attacker injects their own malicious code known as shellcode into a part of memory because the memory and cause the program to execute it by overwriting critical data, such as a return address and function pointers, to hijack the control flow and point to the aforementioned shellcode, thereby gaining control over the program. The industry eventually evolved into mitigating this style of attacks by making writable areas of memory as non-executable and executable areas as non-writable, preventing an attacker from injecting executing shellcode. However, an attacker can bypass this by refusing bits of code already present within the program, known as gadgets, outside of the order which they were originally intended to be used. An attacker can form a chain of such gadgets to achieve near arbitrary code execution despite the aforementioned protections, utilizing techniques such as return-oriented programming (ROP) or jump-oriented programming (JOP). Attackers often inject their shellcode into writable memory pages and then use these codes to reuse techniques transition memory pages to executable using syscalls such as mprotect or virtual alk. I'm assuming that's allocation. Consequently allowing it to be executed. Linux has yet to provide a strong mitigations against the avenue of attacks. SE Linux does provide the exe mem boolean. However, this is rarely ever used, and there's also the Sara LSM, but this has not yet been accepted upstream in comparison to other operating systems. Okay. In 2017, Windows implemented mitigation known as Arbitrary Code Guard, ACG, which mitigates the aforementioned exploit technique by ensuring that all executable memory pages are immutable and can never be made writable. Yeah, immutability is kind of like one of those things in Linux that would actually increase its security. This is... this is like one of the things that is strengthen mobile operating systems and like generally Graphene OS is because it's pretty much immutable. That's why you can't go in and change things like that are like part of the core function. This is why rooting your phone is it breaks the security model because it allows you to have too much access. Similar to AGC, macOS includes hardened runtime mitigation injection shellcode into the memory of user space applications. M1 Macs also have the kernel integrity protection (KIP) to protect the kernel. More specifically, it uses a custom hardware mitigation known as the KTRR to enforce strict W*X permissions in the kernel. Windows supports virtualization-based security (VBS), which allows it to run entirely the entire operating system inside of a virtual machine, and is used to enforce a number of security guarantees. Examples such hypervisor encoded code integrity (HVCI), which makes it significantly harder to inject malicious code into the kernel by using a hypervisor to strengthen the code integrity, and guarantees ensuring that all code must be virtually signed. Patch Guard. This is a feature that verifies the integrity of the Windows kernel runtime. Kernel Data Protection (KDP) prevents tampering with the kernel data structures by using the hypervisor to mark them as read-only, thereby making a data-only attacks insufficient. Let's see. The non-existence of boundary of root. On ordinary Linux desktop, in a compromised non-root account with access to sudo equals the full root to compromise. The best game booster, in my opinion, aka Manager plus Magic Tuner and Magic Tweak. Boosting games. PrivSec Dev. Ooh. So this was updated recently. Not all Linux, and this is going to go into like, kind of like what you should pick when it comes to your Linux desktop. There's a lot of things that Linux doesn't have out the gate based on it. So this kind of like condenses it down and makes it a little bit more digestible, I guess. You should choose, to be honest, the Tor network is slow. I often use a virtual machine to wait. Well, of course, bro, I thought it was from the Terry A. Davis live stream. We are Terry Davis. Release cycle. You should consider a distribution who stays close to the stable upstream software release, typically rolling release distributions. This is because frozen release cycles distributions are often don't update package versions, and they fall behind on security updates. For frozen distribution package maintainers, their expectation to backport patches to fix vulnerabilities. Debian is one of such example. Another reason to fucking hate Debian. For frozen distribution package maintainers, rather than bump the software to the next version released by upstream developers, some security fixes do not receive a CVE, particularly less property software, at all, and therefore do not make it into the distribution with this patching model. As a result, minor security fixes are sometimes held back until the next major release update. In fact, certain releases have been vulnerable. There have been vulnerabilities introduced by Debian because of their patching process. Are example of this. The practice of holding packages back and applying intermi patches is generally not a good idea, as it diverges from a way the developer and might introduce software to work. Richard Brown has a presentation about this. Why you should hate Debian and systemd, guys. Arch-based distributions. Based, as you should. Arch-based Linux has a very up-to-date packages with minimal downstream patching. That being said, Arch-based distributions are not recommended for those new to Linux, regardless of the distribution. Arch does not have a distribution update mechanism for the underlying software choices, and as a result, you have to stay aware of the current trends and adopt technologies as they supersede old practices on your own. For a secure system, you are also expected to have sufficient Linux knowledge to properly set up a secure, such as adopting mandatory access control, and setting up kernel module blacklist, hardening boot parameters, and manipulating systctl parameters, and knowing what components are needed, components you need, such as Polkit. What is a high-speed internet for our country? This is the question, Mr. Bundy. High-speed internet is whatever internet gets you to use I2P. There is often such confusion about security-focused distributions and pen testing distributions. A quick search for the most secure Linux will often result like Kali Linux, Black Arch, and Parrot OS. These distributions are often are offensive penetration testing distributions that bundle tools for testing other systems. They don't include any extra security. or defensive mitigations intended for the regular use. Linux Libre kernel and Libre distributions. This definitely is going to hurt a lot of people. Do not use Linux Libre kernel since it removes security mitigations and suppresses kernel warnings about vulnerabilities, microcode for ideological reasons. If you want to use one of these distributions for reasons other than ideology, you should make sure that there are ways to easily obtain, install, and update your proper kernel and missing firmware. For example, if you're looking to use GUIX, you should absolutely use something like non-GUIX repositories and get all the fixes as mentioned above. Desktop. Consider using GNOME as your desktop environment. It supports based Wayland. Wayland is the most based option. A display protocol developed with security in mind. It implements permission control for the privileged Wayland protocols like screen copy. And there are other desktop environments and window managers with Wayland support, but are not aware of any permission control implementations by them. One caveat with GNOME is that it is written in unsafe language. Boo! But we think the trade-off permission control is well worth it. Wayland's predecessor, X11, does not support GUI isolation. That is unbased and uncool. Allowing Windows to record screen, log, and inject inputs into other windows, making any attempt at sandboxing futile. While there are options to run nested XLS7 such as Zypra and Zephyr, is that how you use the XE? I thought it was Shong. Shing? Shifra? Shafri. They often come with negative performance consequences and not convenient to set up, meaning that you are not going to be able to play Big Mommy Milkers Part 2 at 120 frames per second. Recommended distributions: Fedora Workstation. Fedora is a great general purpose Linux distribution, especially for those who are new to Linux. It's a semi-rolling release distribution, while some packages are GNOME are frozen until the next Fedora release. Most packages, including the kernel, and updated frequently throughout the lifespan of the release. Each Fedora release is supported for 1 year, with a new version released every 6 months. The distribution takes an upstream first approach and ships packages with minimal downstream patching, and the patches are done in a sensible manner which does not unexplicitly break functionality like debian, which is Debian unbased. Fedora Atomic. Atomic desktops are immutable variants of Fedora with a strong focus on container workflows. While they do not provide security benefits over Fedora, they have a much more reliable update mechanism, unlike traditional Linux. Secure Blue provides hardened operating system image based on Fedora Atomic desktops. While they do additional parties of trust, Secure Blue, GitHub infrastructure, Blue build, their images are substantially hardened and not easily replicated by hand. There are several very interesting packages maintained by Secure Blue as well. Trellant and Hard Malik. OpenSUS is a Fedora OpenSUS Eon. Fedora Atomic Desktop's Europe counterpart, OpenSUS Eon, is a rolling release, fast updated distribution with traditional updates using Btrfs and Snapier. I hate Btrfs, so that the fact that they even mention it pretty much takes all their credit and throws it out the window. It's very gay, and I do not like it. I've never had a good experience with Btrfs. Eon has a relatively small set of base package, thus lowering the attack surface, and mounts the running Btrfs subvolume is read-only. That's based, actually. As you should always do. Let's see. Unix is a distribution focused on anonymity based on Kick Secure, which is meant to run as two virtual machines, a workstation and Tor gateway. All communication from the workstation must go through Tor gateway. This means that even if the workstation is compromised by malware of some kind, the true IP address remains hidden. It is currently the best solution I know of if your threat model requires some form of anonymity. Actually, Tails would be the best. Some features include Tor stream isolation, keystroke anonymization, boot clock randomization, and encrypted swap. Although Tor Unix is best used in conjunction with Qubes, Unix has various disadvantages when compared to other hypervisors. Looks like they've gotten fixed since then. Why can't Qubes just use Grub? Why would you require another kernel? Because Qubes uses, at the time, by default, Qubes uses kernel supplied by DOM0 host, not kernel supplied by VM. Desktop Linux Honey. I mean, relatively speaking, you have to kind of evaluate. This is a really good. We're going to go over this in the next stream. You have to kind of like evaluate what you demean as a relatively secure option. Now, if there's somebody that comes into the place, this video, and they ask themselves, what should I get as the most secure option out of the gate? It's kind of a hard question to answer besides qubesOS, but I would say the best option is maybe Secure Blue or OpenSUSE. OpenSUSE is super easy. It's very reliable. I have used it. Its package manager is relatively decent. It has a ton of support for a lot of stuff to work out of the box without any configuration. It has a decent GUI, and it supports Wayland, which is super based. I think it's something that people should look at. I know everyone's like, oh, use Arch or use Linux Mint. It's like, dude, suck my balls. All these fucking cucks that write these articles are either bots, or they just have never touched Linux outside of anything Debian related that isn't Debian based or fucking whatever. OpenSUSE should be on your radar. Arch too. Arch is great. I just think Arch is like over everyone's like use Arch, but or like Linux Mint. There's no good answer when it comes to like making sure you're having like a nice, decent, secure setup. But base. Wow, an hour and 30 minutes. Wow, guys, hour and 30 minutes. Appreciate everyone stopping by. Make sure that you like and also let YouTube know that I'm not only a real person, I love all their policies and I hate nothing about them because I love YouTube. There is nothing that they do wrong. Make sure to also comment below what is, oh man, this one's gonna be hard. I'm trying to make it flow. What is your favorite construction equipment type vehicle? Think about it. Think long and hard. Comment below for the engagement and make sure that you join the next stream. I appreciate everyone. Nothing but love and peace. See you guys in the next one.